Knowledge is power, and in the crypto markets, that power translates into mad gains. But what's the quickest and most effective way to get access to that knowledge? Well, it's through a podcast. So in this video, I'm going to tell you about the top 5 best crypto podcasts out there, those that I personally listen to religiously. So if you want to make the most of the opportunities in crypto, then this is something you can't afford to miss. Sorry, folks, I better take this. Sorry. Hello? Guybo, mate. It's your Uncle Dennis from Down Under. How's it going, sport? Uncle Den. Oh, it's lovely to hear from you. It's been a while. Yeah, I ain't seen you since your cousin Charlene's wedding. Look, anyway, mate, your Aunt Annie said you were doing crypto videos on YouTube, so I checked them out. Nice, good stuff there, fella. I bought some of your merch too. Yeah, loving it. Now, look, Guybo, you seem to know what you're talking about, so I've got a couple of things I want to go over with you, mate. Oh, yes? Yeah, so first up, I could use a bit of the old financial advice from you. I bet you got a ton of that up your sleeve. Well, actually, Uncle Dan, I'm afraid not. You see, I'm not a financial advisor, and my videos they're only for education and entertainment. If it's financial advice you're after, you'll have to go elsewhere, I'm afraid. Ah, that's too bad. Look, anyhow, the other reason I got on the old blower was to tell you about a crypto project I'm building with me mate Wayne. Okay. Yeah, it's called RooCoin. Right? It's the first ever cryptocurrency that's pegged to the number of kangaroos here in Oz. So every roo is worth 1,000 roo tokens, and when a roo drops off the perch, those 1,000 tokens are burned, right? But whenever a joey is born, an extra 1,000 tokens are minted, right? It's hard money, mate, so forget gold, forget Bitcoin, RooCoin is the future. Right. So anyway, I'm calling to give you first dibs on our seed round, right? We're selling at 10 cents a token, so right, you can nab yourself a nice little bag and then do a video about it on your channel. So price pulls a nice little 10,000x and we get rich. And the best part is, mate, Wayne and I are going to go out every day and shoot a bunch of roos to keep the pump going. Well, it's a kind offer, Uncle Dan, but I'm not sure it's my thing, really. There's a few kind of ethical and tokenomic issues to start with. Ah, well, it's your funeral, mate. Look, you can always ape in when it lists on Pancake Swap, I suppose. Anyway, I've got my eye on a nice little island for when the whole thing pops off. You might have heard of it. Oh, yes. Which one? Tasmania. Anyway, look, I'd love to chat, but it's 50 degrees down here, mate. I've got to get myself in the pool. So good luck with your videos, and I'll see you the next time someone in the family dies, I reckon. Yes, yeah, nice catching up, Uncle Dan. Yeah, see you around. Bloody Pom. Annie, how are them shrimps coming along, babe? What is it Harper Lee said? You can choose your friends, but you sure can't choose your family. Well, she had that right. Anyhow, I'm sure many of you have that slightly nerdy friend who constantly bangs on about their favourite podcast and proclaims it as the best thing that's ever happened to the world. Well, here's the truth. Every podcast has a different flavour and focuses on different things. Last time I checked, we were all different and have different interests and priorities when it comes to the vast universe of cryptocurrency. So opinions are going to vary here. With that in mind, this list of podcasts is in no particular order, and these are just a few that I personally like to listen to while taking a walk in the countryside, relaxing after a long day in the studio, or commuting into Coinbureau HQ. So, with that out of the way, let's jump into my first podcast. And that is Unchained. Now, this is hosted by Laura Shin, who's a former editor at Forbes and was actually the first journalist from the mainstream media to cover crypto full-time. So, someone with some pretty solid foresight. Unchained releases 2 episodes a week, and each is between 30 minutes to over an hour long, which so happens to be roughly the same amount of time it takes for most Londoners to commute into work. Yep, we really do waste that much of our lives over here. The podcast's format takes on 2 main forms. The first is a discussion about a particular topic with a guest. The second involves Laura mediating a discussion between industry experts. So, what topics does the Unchained podcast focus on? Well, you're going to find a really broad range of subjects, so the show isn't really pigeonholed into any single sub-niche, ideal for those curious minds and those wanting to broaden their crypto horizons. For instance, you have one recent episode on the role of investors in a decentralized world, with a discussion on how funding rounds for decentralized protocols differ from investing in traditional companies. Then you have an episode with some of the biggest names in crypto and their personal philosophies on philanthropy. And more tokenomics-based episodes focused on discussions surrounding EIP 1559 for Ethereum and how this has significantly improved investor outlook for ETH. A very cool episode also saw Plan B discussing how he got into Bitcoin, what a stock-to-flow model is, and how this crypto legend uses it to predict the price of BTC. With all the recent hype around the metaverse and NFTs, you probably won't be surprised to hear that there are multiple episodes covering these themes too. So yeah, if you're interested in hearing the insights of some of the smartest and most prominent thought leaders in crypto, then you're going to want to give Unchained a listen too. Laura is an excellent host into the bargain and is much respected in crypto circles, meaning she's always able to attract A-list guests. Also, keep a lookout for her book, The Cryptopians, which profiles some of the people who have shaped the crypto space over the last crazy decade. It's out next year and top of my reading list. But what if you're a Bitcoin maximalist or would rather spend your time zooming in on the big daddy of cryptocurrencies? Well, I think my next podcast will be right up your street. My next recommended crypto podcast has got to be What Bitcoin Did. Now, this show is brought to us by Peter McCormack, and this chap doesn't claim to be a tech wizard or expert economist, but after a single episode, it should be abundantly clear that he does know a heck of a lot about Bitcoin. The podcast essentially consists of Peter chatting with some of the smartest minds in crypto about, well, you guessed it, Bitcoin. 3 or 4 episodes come out a week, perfect for those like me who love to wheeze their way around the gym every day. Now, this certainly isn't the type of podcast for those with ADHD. Episodes are usually at least an hour and can run for much longer. What I personally find super impressive about What Bitcoin Did is how the podcast manages to appeal to both people with a passing interest in Bitcoin and crypto veterans too. Not an easy tightrope to walk. To give you a flavour of what is on offer at this show, one recent episode revolved around a super interesting discussion about current global macroeconomics and the threat of hyperinflation. Themes explored included the long-term debt cycle, commodities markets, current and historical inflation rates, the guest's investment thesis in this environment, the pros and cons of Bitcoin ETFs, and Bitcoin price predictions. So yeah, certainly the type of episode that appeals to those wanting to brush up on their economics. Then you have several recent episodes telling you the ins and outs of what's happening in regards to Bitcoin adoption in El Salvador. One episode that springs to mind is a discussion with Aaron van Veerdem, the editor-in-chief at Bitcoin magazine. In it, the chaps discuss the Bitcoin adoption rollout in El Salvador, the role of the Chivo app, what El Salvadoran banks think about all this, the benefits of adoption, and much more. Speaking of El Salvador, Peter also interviewed the man, the legend himself, Najib Bukele, the president of the country. They went into an in-depth discussion of why the country decided to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender. Well worth a listen. Those who love data and metrics are also well served here too, with a recent interview featuring none other than on-chain analyst Willy Woo. That episode included discussions on the impact of Bitcoin ETFs on the market, cycle maximalism, cash and carry trades, long-term holding patterns, changing date and glassnode metrics, and more. Some episodes also debate crypto-related legislation, such as the US infrastructure bill earlier this year. Now yes, at face value, that seemed to have nothing to do with crypto unless you actually read the 2,000-page document outlining how the government intended to fund that trillion-dollar investment infrastructure. Essentially, it was proposed that brokers of digital assets would have to adhere to a set of US reporting requirements that seemed impossible to comply with, if the proposal became law. In that episode, Peter explores the hidden dangers of that bill with an independent lawyer and the chief compliance officer of a major crypto fund. Now yes, the topic of crypto legislation might not sound the sexiest, but I imagine when it comes to crypto taxes, most hodlers out there are going to want to keep their fingers on the pulse of that sort of stuff. Now, if this whole infrastructure bill malarkey is new to you, I'll leave some videos in the description that go over it in a bit more detail. So yeah, if you're interested in learning more about Bitcoin from a plethora of different angles, then chances are that What Bitcoin Did is the podcast for you to try out. Peter himself is also a fascinating character, a Bitcoin maxi with strong opinions who's nevertheless open to debating with those who don't share his views and always hungry to learn from his guests. He's also not afraid to put himself on the line. His clashes with the likes of Craig Wright and Peter Schiff would send lesser mortals running for the hills, but Peter is not afraid of a tussle. His constant digs at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club are also a nice little Easter egg for regular listeners. Okay, but what if you're not a maxi, say? Are you a DeFi degen perhaps looking for your daily dose of gwei? Well, it just so happens there is a top podcast that focuses on that too. The third podcast I want to talk about is The Defiant. This one is brought to us by Camilla Russo, an ex-reporter for Bloomberg who kind of stumbled into crypto podcasting by accident. Back in 2017, Camilla was searching for a book project and stumbled across Ethereum. Now back then, you'll probably be surprised to know that there were a plethora of books on Bitcoin, but very few covering the second biggest crypto in existence. That little book project culminated in the publishing of the title The Infinite Machine: How an Army of Crypto Hackers is Building the Next Internet with Ethereum. That book came out in mid-2020 when DeFi was kind of exploding. Oh, how I miss those days of DeFi summer. Essentially, it was from that springboard that the Defiant podcast was born. Most episodes are between 40 minutes and an hour long, and Camilla does a great job in covering almost every element of the DeFi world. For example, you have this recent episode, which I found quite intriguing. It talks about the NFT marketplace and how it is saturated with projects that do little to differentiate from one another, and that is what caused the flight to gaming NFTs. What was super interesting here was that the guest, Zeneca, quit professional poker to become a full-time NFT trader, and he shares the lessons that he learnt from poker and applied to the crypto space with great success. Then you have episodes like, quote, ETH and most DeFi is trading cheaper than Web 2 and with better growth, with Matthew Siegel from Van Eck, a major asset management firm with an AUM of $80 billion. Matthew talks about how the firm started out investing almost exclusively in Bitcoin and why the asset manager is becoming increasingly bullish on DeFi and Ethereum. His analysis of the investment case for this draws upon methods found in traditional finance and will be of particular interest to those thinking about allocating a greater proportion of their portfolio to this sector. Then you have episodes focusing on play-to-earn games with project co-founders like Gabby Dizon of Yield Guild Games, discussing how this new frontier of blockchain gaming could impact on the lives of potentially millions of people in developing economies like the Philippines. So yeah, if you're interested in learning more about DeFi, exploring new angles in this crypto sub-niche, and learning about emerging DeFi investment trends, then you're going to want to tune into this podcast. But what if you want to look at the cryptoverse through a broader lens and listen to a podcast that is a little bit more of a one-stop shop? Well, I think I have the option for you coming up next. At 4, I have the Pomp Podcast. Now, this is brought to you by Anthony Pompliano, who manages a pretty hefty investment portfolio of about $500 million. He also has a wildly popular newsletter, runs a popular YouTube channel, and has one of the biggest crypto Twitter accounts out there. On top of all that, he hosts one of the most popular crypto podcasts out there too. These podcast episodes range from anywhere sub 30 minutes to well over an hour. So, regardless of if you're into shorter episodes or longer ones, you are likely to find episodes that are just the right length for you. What's interesting is that Anthony kind of sits at the intersection of finance, technology, economics, and entrepreneurship, and that certainly shines through in his podcasts. But how varied is this podcast really? Well, a recent episode was more geared to the financial side of things, titled Bringing Decentralized Technology to Public Markets with Russell Starr. Yes, Bitcoin and DeFi are discussed, as you might imagine. However, the debate moves on to cover public markets, regulation, equity, debt markets, balance sheet management, and more. Then you have episodes with broader financial themes, such as the delightful topic of the economy is worse than you think. In it, Pomp discusses negative yielding debt, how the bottom is falling out on pensions, and how BTC might just remedy wider microeconomic problems. Next, you have more focused economic topics like the recent episode with Peter Schiff. Yeah, him again. In it, the chaps talk all about inflation, employment, monetary and fiscal policy. On the entrepreneurial side of things, there are a plethora of different episodes dedicated to this topic. One that I quite enjoyed was a recent one discussing the acquisition of plain Jane businesses like a landscaping operation and how to build a scalable service company. Also, I have to hand it to Pomp, he is a podcast content beast. His show pretty much has a new episode every day. So if you think you'll be listening to podcasts a lot and are worried about the possibility of running out of content, then the Pomp Podcast is one that you should certainly whack your headphones on for. But what if you're just looking for a riveting crypto story, one filled with intrigue and exposing the nasty underbelly of cryptocurrency? Well, you'll want to hear about the twists and turns of one of the biggest crypto scams ever, right? At 5, I have The Missing Crypto Queen. Yes, this 9-episode series is a couple of years old, and there haven't really been any firm developments in the mystery recently. However, this real story follows Dr. Ruja Ignatova and her OneCoin Ponzi scheme, an elaborate $4 billion scam. That story started back in 2014 with Dr. Ruja founding OneCoin. However, there was one tiny problem. OneCoin had no public or private blockchain and no real tech to speak of, a bit of an issue for a self-proclaimed cryptocurrency. Instead, the scam project had Dr. Ruja at the helm, and boy was she charismatic. Not only was she fluent in several languages, but she reportedly had an Oxford University degree and had apparently appeared on the front cover of Forbes magazine. Then you had swanky OneCoin events where Dr. Ruja claimed that OneCoin was a Bitcoin killer and how she was going to bank the unbanked. Yep, all the fluff that I'm sure you'll have heard many times in the crypto space. Incredibly, OneCoin holders didn't seem to mind that OneCoin wasn't listed on any public exchanges. A real head-scratcher if you ask me. Instead, people were sold OneCoins by their friends and family through a crazy, fake, multi-level marketing affiliate program. Now, of course, Ponzi schemes can't last forever. In late 2017, when Dr. Ruja was meant to show up at an event in Lisbon, she vanished in a puff of smoke forever, leaving a trail of destruction in her wake. This is actually one of the biggest crypto head-scratchers out there, one which I go into more detail in my video on the biggest crypto mysteries, which you can check out right here. Now, that's the short version of this crypto crime mystery. However, there is honestly so much more to it, which is all covered in this podcast series. The story also serves as a cautionary tale of the dangers of being seduced by the glitz and glamour of crypto, and how you should probably ask questions when a project seems too good to be true. It's presented by investigative journalist Jamie Bartlett, who has previously dug deep into the likes of the dark web and other troubling aspects of tech. He and co-producer Georgia Cat even ventured to a deeply weird OneCoin beauty pageant in Bulgaria and came uncomfortably close to some seriously shady people involved in the scandal. Anyhow, if a gripping crypto crime story is what you're looking for, then I give this podcast a big double thumbs up. It's also a fascinating exploration of the way in which people act when confronted with something like OneCoin. It's easy to just think of the people who invested in the scam as idiots, but Jamie and Georgia show that there's much more going on under the surface. If you want to get a better understanding of human motivations and weaknesses, as well as get caught up in the story, then you should definitely pop this bad boy on your playlist. Now, what if you are a true Coin Bureau fan and are hoping for a top-notch podcast from yours truly? Now, it is true that I upload the audio from Coin Bureau videos to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a bunch of other places. But let's face it, there's more to podcasting than this. Now, I know you crypto podcast connoisseurs out there deserve something a whole lot better than that. Also, many people do not know this, but Coin Bureau was founded with two very simple missions in mind. To serve the current crypto community by creating the best educational content we can. I hope that this YouTube channel and the content on our website coinbureau.com shows the effort that has gone into achieving that. We also wanted to bring as many new people into the cryptoverse as possible. One thing that the Bureau did to further that cause was to take out ad space at 17 busy London Underground stations a few months ago. But here's a fun fact that was relayed to me by a good friend this year. There are nearly 400 million podcast listeners in the world. That's a heck of a lot of people I could potentially reach and maybe even turn into crypto believers. So I was delighted when iHeartRadio, a massive podcast network, came knocking and asked how I would feel about doing their first podcast dedicated to the crazy world of crypto. That was an opportunity I couldn't refuse. Even sweeter, they agreed that this new podcast could be co-hosted by my childhood friend Mad Mike. Those hardcore fans of the channel might recall this elusive fella. Anyhow, the first episodes of that new podcast are expected to come out sometime in February. I've already been working on it with Mike, and I'm so excited to share it with you guys shortly. In it, I'll cover everything from the basics of blockchain tech to the latest crypto news and guest interviews with some of the smartest minds in crypto. So if you're looking for a bonus crypto podcast that's coming soon, then you might be interested in the smooth sounds of yours truly. If you want to be kept up to date with that and be the first to know when the first episode is due, then you'll want to sign up to my newsletter. I'll pop all podcast-related announcements there. You can sign up to that for free using the link in the description below. If you're a little late to the party and are watching this after the podcast has been released, you can find a link to it in the description of this video. All right, guys, that's about all I have time for today. I hope that you found this video useful and it helps point you in the direction of the right crypto podcast for you. I'll also say that this list is by no means exclusive. There are many other great podcasts out there, and I hope to come back to this topic at some point with more options for you folks. YouTube may be a natural home for crypto content, but there is so much great free knowledge to be gained from podcasts as well. So next time you're on that onerous commute or doing that boring chore, make sure you're maximizing that time. I'll wager that your future self will thank you for making that move. Also, if you're interested in tuning into any of the podcasts I've mentioned in this video, then don't forget to check them out using the links in the description below. And now I want to hear your thoughts. What is your favorite crypto podcast? Have you got any questions? Let me know in the comments. Finally, if I've helped you out with this video, then why not take a moment to show your appreciation by smashing that like button. If you'd like to see even more videos from me, then don't forget to subscribe. See you later, alligators.